Hey, this is Ryan, and today I want to introduce quizzes to you. The process of doing that, though, is actually a two-part process. The first part of the process is actually creating the questions and managing your question bank as they resolve and result in a quiz. And then the second part is creating that quiz and using those pre-created questions to go in and add to your actual exam or quiz. So the first part of this is I want to go over the question bank. How do we add questions to that? How do we populate that out so that we have questions available for a quiz? So all of this starts if I go to my course here, and if I'm in the main page of my course, in my settings block, there is a link that says question bank. And it's actually a collapsible arrow if you look closely. If I click on that collapsible arrow, it'll give me 4 different links beneath that. One for questions, one for categories, one for importing, and one for exporting. What we're concerned with today is actually importing, because I want to show you the process of actually adding a bunch of questions at once to your question bank through the import function. So I'm going to click on that import link. And when I do that, it takes me to this page that says import questions from file. What I actually want to choose in this case is this thing called Aiken format. And there's a whole lot of different formats I can bring into this course. Some are Blackboard files, so let's say I have a really old Blackboard test or exam that I did before and I want to bring back in. Or Pearson and a lot of the book publishers sometimes pre-populate themselves with different question formats, and depending on the type of format they publish that in, they can typically be brought into a Moodle quiz or exam to be used actually in their class. That's what they make them for. So there's a good possibility that that's something that can be imported directly into Moodle. But the reason I use this Aiken format is Aiken format's a very simple, older version of bringing questions in. But it basically is a text file that lists the questions, typically in multiple choice format, that have the 4 answers or 2 answers or 5 answers, depending on how many answers are in the question, the line of the question, and then the answer letter immediately below that. So let me give you an example of what that exactly looks like. I'm going to go in an old course here and find a copy or a sample of those questions. And if you look at these, basically the idea is the question's going to go on the top line. Beneath that are 4 or 5 answer choices, A, B, C, D, sometimes E or D. And those are all in a capital letter, followed by a dot, followed by the answer. And then the answer is highlighted by being in all capital letters, followed by a semicolon, and then the letter that is actually correct. So if you maintain this format in that basic structure throughout creating these questions, what you can do is take all these questions and import them all at once. So I'm going to close this file, and then I'm going to go back to my Moodle window and back to my browser window for Windows, grab that questions file, and I'm just going to drag it into this import questions from file box. When I do that, now that Access Excel questions list is now in this import questions from file folder, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit import. And when I do that, it says parsing questions from import file, importing 16 questions from file, which is exactly what I wanted to happen. This shows me that those are the 16 questions that got added to my question bank. Sometimes what will happen here is you'll get an error on the question. And typically what happens there is when I bring those files into a course, maybe the capital letter on one of the questions was uncapitalized, or the answer given wasn't one of the answers available. So it's important to edit your question file to make sure that all of the structure and support things are in place so that I can import those files the correct way. So I'm going to go ahead and hit continue at this point. And when I do that now, you'll see that all of those questions that I've added are now in my course as extra questions now. And so at this point, now that I have a full question bank full of questions, what I can do is create an exam and then add these questions to that exam. And we'll do that in the next module.